music. Welcome to my channel. Today in fingerboard geometry, we'll be looking at vertical diatonic triad studies in root position. First, we'll look at some fingerings, and then we'll do some exercises. Here we go. I hope you enjoy it. All right, today in fingerboard geometry, we're going to start diatonic circle of fourth studies in vertical format. So let me unpack that a little bit. The circle of fourths is a very famous musical tool. If you do not know what that is, it's a way to organize roots and keys. I've done videos on it, so you might want to check that out. As a review, let's go through that really quick. As far as what it looks like on the guitar, if you start at the 8th fret C and you want to find a fourth away from C, since the guitar is tuned in fourths, you can just move up one string. So C to F is a fourth, and then you continue down in whole steps. So then F to B flat is a fourth, and B flat to E flat is a fourth, A flat to D flat is a fourth, and then we go D flat to G flat here, and then we're at C flat. So those are all the notes in music. I mean, they also have alternate names. You could call some of them by flat or sharp names. So if you wanted to, you could go C, F, E flat, A flat. You could call this C sharp if you wanted. You could call this F sharp, and you could call this B, however you wish to do that. But when we talk about diatonic circle, we really need to be concerned about the key signature. So you're going to do the same thing. Let's say I wanted to play diatonic circle in the key of C. I would follow that same pattern, but when I get to a note that's not in the key of C, I would change that note to the version that would fit in C. So if I start at C here and I go C, and then I go to F, that's still in the key of C, but my next note's supposed to be B flat in the true circle of fourths, but B flat's not in the key of C, so I'd use B natural, that is in the key of C. Then I keep moving in fourths. So now B to E is a fourth, E to A is a fourth, A to D is a fourth, D to G is a fourth, G to C is a fourth, and that completes my circle back to C. So that's the diatonic circle, meaning we are staying in the key of C. So you could do that for any key. In short, if you're trying to figure out what that really means as far as numbers of the scale, it's always 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So remember, that's a circle. So I can start anywhere in that circle and it would continue going in that order. 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So those are the chord degrees or scale degrees. And so our arpeggios will be following that order as we go through this exercise. Now that I've talked a little bit about the diatonic circle of fourths, let's get to how we're going to do this particular study. Now let's do this in the key of G. We're going to be playing these chords, or you could play them as arpeggios, vertically across the strings like this. Now that works very well because if you do diatonic circle, meaning moving in mostly in fourths, you're going to be able to move string to string because the guitar is tuned primarily in fourths. So that sets us up for a good vertical exercise. So again, remember the diatonic circle is 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So if I start on 1, which is G, and play a root position G chord here from the 6th string, or my next chord a fourth away would be a 4-chord C. And then I continue moving toward the floor in fourths, or diatonic fourths, because in this case, when I move from C, I'm moving a sharp 4, which is in the key, to F sharp, and this is the 7, and it's diminished. And then I move to the 3 chord, it's minor. If these chord qualities seem unfamiliar to you as far as major, minor, diminished, you need to go back and review some of my previous videos. So that was a block of chords, 1, 4, 7, 3, that were all right here, a vertical block. We're going to go up to the next degree of this scale for G. That's A, or A minor. And we're going to do the same thing moving in fourths. So here's a root position A minor triad. And then we have a D, that's the 5. A G, that's the 1. A C, that's the 4. Then we move another scale degree up to the 3 chord, that's B, and that's B minor. That's 3, and then E minor 6. A minor is 2. D major is 5. Continuing up the G scale, you're now on C, that's 4. We move a diatonic fourth, which is a sharp 4 in this case, over to the diminished 7th chord of the key, which is F sharp diminished. And then we're to the 3 chord. And then we're to the 6 chord. And then we continue up the scale to D, that's the 5. And then the 1 G. And then the 4 C. And then we have the 7 again, that's F sharp diminished. And then we're up to the 6 chord E minor, 2 chord A minor, 5 chord D, and then the 1 chord is G. And finally, we're at the 7th chord F sharp diminished. This is followed by the 3 chord B minor. 6 is E minor, 2 chords A minor. And that brings us back to G again, an octave from where we started. Let's look at one more key before we go on to the exercises. All right, I'm going to run down what we're doing for the exercises. It's pretty much the same thing that we just did. We're going to try to work through a couple of keys in the exercises. I advise using a musical die or working your way through the circle of fourths or fifths in order to make sure that you get through all the keys or be able to do a random key. The other thing is it's not advisable to always start on the 1 chord. Like in the key of D, which I'm going to demo right now, you'd start all the way up here and you'd run out of room and you have to circle back around. So if you could start on a chord that's closer to the nut, that would be better. I'm going to start on a G again, but now when I start on G, it's going to be a 4 chord. So my first block of chords here will be 4, 7, 3, 6, because that's where I'm at in that diatonic circle. So this is the 4, that's G, and then my 7 is C sharp diminished, and then my 3 is F sharp minor, and B minor is the 6. And I keep working up the fretboard, so now my next chord is the 5, and then the 1 is D, and the 4 is G, and the 7 is C sharp diminished again, and then I get to the 6th chord, 6 B minor, 2 E minor, 5 is A, 1 is D, now I'm up to 7, that's C sharp diminished, and then I'm at the 3, and then I'm at the 6, and then I'm at the 2 E minor, and then I'm at the 1 D, and then 4 G, and then 7, which is C sharp diminished, and then 3, which is F sharp minor, and I keep going. 2, 5, 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, and then 5. And then I've gone through all the vertical blocks. So going to do that for a few keys in the exercises. Let's get a look. That's it for Diatonic Triad Vertical Studies in root position. I'm Kimberly Allison from Starliner Music, and I hope to see you back on my channel soon.